Welcome back to Prospect Analytics and happy opening day for Major League Baseball. I know that baseball fans are very excited. It's been almost 5 months now since the World Series ended, and we've had baseball games that matter that we could watch, and those kick off tonight with the Yankees versus the Giants at 8:05 Eastern over on Netflix. With the start of the season, teams are starting to finalize their rosters, so I wanted to go back and revisit one of my first podcast episodes that I did back on February 18th of this year. Prior to any spring training games being played, I tried to predict the prospects that I thought had the best chance of making their team's opening day roster. Now, to make it difficult, I went with only non-debuted prospects because it's not often that you see prospects get their first action on opening day. The first 5 that I named: number 1, JJ Weatherholt. He is in as a Cardinal starter. Number 2 was Justin Crawford. He will be the opening day starter for the Phillies in center field. My number 3 pick, Carson Benj of the Mets, also will be an opening day starter in right field. And my number 4 pick, Kevin McGonigal. Of course, we just learned yesterday that he also will make the opening day roster for the Tigers. And did I complete a sweep on the top 5? Almost. My 5th pick, Joe Mack, the only one that will not make the opening day roster. Thanks for nothing, Miami. But I'd say that the predictions did pretty well. 4 out of 5, not too bad. Once again, as a reminder, make sure you go and check out the new site, www.prospect-analytics.com. We now have 25 of the 30 team buy sheets up, with the next 5 coming out sometime between now and April 1st. Then over the next month, we have a lot of things going on that I'm excited about. I am giving away a free hobby box of 2023 Bowman. One of our paid subscribers is going to have the chance to pull some really nice Roman Anthony, maybe some Junior Caminero cards. I also am going to be updating my 200 hitters and 100 pitchers for the hobby after the first week of minor league games. There's also a chart that I'm working on where for every MLB team, you will see their single A, high A, double A, and triple A rosters, only players who have Bowman cards, along with a age value showing if they are younger or older than the average competitor at that level. And then, of course, you can't forget, we are coming up on 2026 Bowman, which will likely release the first week of May. And before any of those breaks are filled or boxes hit the shelves, I will have in-depth review of the product and the autograph checklist for both hitters and pitchers, telling you which players to chase singles of and which teams should have value in pick your team breaks. So make sure you go over to the website and check that out. And remember that our subscription prices increase on April 1st, so you want to lock in that yearly rate before that day comes. Now, we will have baseball tonight, and luckily we are still about a year away from finding out if the new collective bargaining agreement will delay the start of the 2027 season. But it's an issue that's looming for all of us, as those talks will get underway at some time next month. So to get a better idea of how likely we are to see Major League Baseball get locked out, I sat down with Evan Drellich of The Athletic, who has covered the CBA extensively, even back to the last time that the MLB saw a lockout in 2022. He told us what to expect over the course of the next year throughout these negotiations and how likely he thinks we are to miss any MLB time in 2027. The most exciting part for those of us in the Bowman world, though, is that Evan has assured us that lockout or not, we will have minor league baseball. All right, we are joined today by Evan Drellich, senior writer for The Athletic. How's it going today, Evan?
I'm all right, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So there's been a lot of talk, obviously, with the new collective bargaining agreement coming out. Everyone worried about if there's going to be a lockout in the MLB in 2027. Can you give us a little background on how does the CBA work? What is it that they're actually disagreeing on that's causing this kind of roadblock that we all hear about?
Well, they haven't disagreed technically on anything yet. The negotiations are supposed to start likely in April. Early in the regular season is the target. We're not aware of any specific date at this point. But like last time, it's highly unlikely that you're going to have a deal completed by December 1st at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. And the league has made clear, just like last time, that it will likely lock out the players if there is no deal in place. And so the winter of 2026 going into 2027 is likely going to be shut down. There's not going to be free agency. There's not going to be winter meetings. And then the hope is, I think for everybody, that a deal gets done in time such that the regular season in 2027 is not impacted. But the question about disagreement, what are they not seeing eye to eye on? The owners want a salary cap, and they've for a long time wanted a salary cap, but they seem to be ready to make a new push for one. And even if they back off of it, the question will be, well, how are they trying to change the system? Can they find a middle ground with the players? The players feel comfortable accepting because historically players have not wanted a salary cap. So, how long does the salary cap proposal last? Do the owners wait until players cave on it, however long that might take? We'll see. It could be ugly. It'll certainly be ugly for the winter, but does it cost regular season games is the question we don't know yet.
And when it comes to, I know people, obviously when these talks happen and everyone's like, oh, the season's going to lock out, naturally everyone likes to blame teams like the Dodgers. The Dodgers are ruining baseball. But then you have the counterpoint that, maybe having a salary cap and having a salary floor are two different equations. Is it the salary cap that's the problem, or is it the owners who don't want to spend money and aren't even trying to put a product on the field that can win games? Is that more of an issue in the mind on the player side?
Certainly on the player side, they believe that there are many owners, or at least some owners, who could and should spend more, have the capability to, and they would want to try to, they being the union, to incentivize those teams to spend, to find a way to compel them to do it without a cap. Now, when I talk about a cap, or when anybody talks about a cap in baseball, it means cap and floor. There is not a world in which we might not get either in baseball, but you would never get a cap without a floor, or a floor without a cap. That's just one thing to know. So a cap is kind of an all-encompassing idea. And one of the key things about a cap is it formalizes a revenue split. So the league and the union decide on a number. It's going to be 52% or 53% goes to players, whatever the number, maybe it's 50-50, whatever the number is. Whereas today that doesn't exist. And then from there, there are all sorts of other restrictions that could come with it. You could put a limit on individual player length of contract. You could put a max dollar figure on it. You don't have to do either of those things. There would be a floor and a ceiling for every team's individual payroll. There's a lot that comes with a cap and a floor besides just a cap and floor. It's a really major economic shift that the union believes there are many problems with adopting. And so far, the players seem pretty unified in that position, and the owners seem pretty unified on the idea that they want a cap. But it's very easy for everybody to talk tough. When you start to actually miss games and money, it becomes a much different conversation.
I know that a lot of the talk with the money, salary cap and floor, obviously, as I mentioned, the Dodgers, the one thing that people always bring up is these deferred contracts that they've been giving out. Do you think that there will be something in the CBA? Are they going to try to stop teams from doing that going forward, since everyone seems to think that, like you can't get Ohtani for $1 million a year and tell him you're going to give him 60 later? Obviously, people seem to think that is an issue with the current agreement. What kind of work in can they have to make sure that stuff like that doesn't happen?
It's a little bit of a we'll see. I mean, it's a lot. It's all a we'll see. I expect the league will propose restrictions, some sort of modification to the allowance of deferrals. I don't know if that's a full elimination. I'm not sure the owners would want to fully eliminate. Some might. The players and the agents like the ability to have deferrals. So if I had to guess, it probably wouldn't go away entirely, but I would probably expect some modification to it. But it's kind of hard to know until you get to the table, right? And is that something? And this is me just speculating. Is deferrals the kind of thing that the players are saying? Well, we're willing to give that up for something else. We'll see. But players and agents do value deferrals.
Now, obviously, we are very far away from this being a real issue that we need to worry about. But when it comes to, like you said, missing games, what would you say today are the chances that there will be a lockout of some kind, that we're going to miss games in 2027?
It's tough because we all just watched a wonderful World Baseball Classic, and it was a great World Series, and the rule changes in baseball have done well. It feels like the game has a level of momentum. Now, when you get underneath it, the owners will look at their franchise values, which are nothing to sneeze at. These are all billion-dollar valuations and up. But they see them not climbing as much as the NBA and the NFL. if you get a salary cap, if you're the owners, your franchise values go up instantly. It's a big win for them, but it historically has been something players have been willing to fight a very long time to avoid. It was the core issue, among others, in 1994-95 when there was a 232-day strike. The thing that that last time told me, the last time being the last lockout, or reminded me, and I think should remind other people, is at the end of the day, the way everybody makes money is by finding a way to play. And there's huge money at stake if they don't play. And it's not just ticket sales, it's sponsorships, it's TV, it's everything. And the pressure comes from more than just the players on the owners on the players. It's the public, obviously, but it's the rights holder partners, it's the sponsorship groups. It still seems to me the kind of most rational course of action will be to find some way to play the 2027 season in full. I think that is what is most likely to happen, based on everything I've experienced and seen so far. What I can't predict, and kind of nobody can predict, is whether the 30 owners and their ownership groups get together and say, we don't particularly care about anything else except getting this done, except this major change. You could see a world in which maybe they test the waters a bit. Maybe they're willing to miss a month, a couple weeks. But the damage of a full season or even a half season is so significant that it's not unfathomable, but it just doesn't feel likely when there is a slate of things that are going well, even if they're not going as well as the owners would like them to. So it's a kind of long-winded way of saying, could they miss a few games? Maybe. A full season just doesn't seem very likely unless the owners really find the conviction to stick together, and they're all different individuals with different needs, different debt. So it's going to be really loud. Everybody's going to talk really, really tough. But we just saw it. It's not nearly apples and oranges, but we just saw it in the WNBA. They went right down to the wire and they got a deal. Baseball last time went right down to the wire and got a deal. If I were betting, and I'm not betting and I'm not encouraging betting, I would say they'll probably go right down to the wire and get a deal.
And you mentioned, it's not only sponsorships, but, the public perception. Obviously, 94, 95, probably a little bit different. That seemed like it kind of killed baseball. Let's say we did have a lockout. You don't see it affecting the game, the way the public perceives the game like it did back then, do you?
Really would depend on the length, wouldn't it? Is it a full season lockout where you've turned away? The point I keep making on this is already 5 or 6 years ago, but it's before a playoff game, and I was doing a bigger picture story on the health of baseball, and I talked to Rob Manfred for a few minutes. We were at Yankee Stadium, and he held up his phone and he said, this is the challenge, holding up his phone for me. And his point was that people have access to any form of entertainment they want in their pocket. It is so easy for people to find an alternative to baseball. In the entertainment landscape, it's not just baseball trying to compete against another sport. And in the summer in the U.S., baseball is the dominant sport. But you're competing against every other entertainment property. And so, I think people will always eventually come back to baseball in some capacity if there is a work stoppage. The longer a work stoppage goes, the more damage you do, the more angry you make people. And also, in today's world, it's just a bit easier to be left behind. There's so many alternatives, and it's a big risk if you do that. And the 30 ownership groups, they can't all sell their franchises at once. The amount of time it would take to kind of make back the lost revenue, it's quite a proposition to miss out on the what would probably be going into 2027 roughly $13 billion industry, close to it, somewhere around there. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, you'd think that for that much money they could find a way to make it work. And I know that a lot of my subscribers in particular, they're all Bowman collectors. They are big followers of minor league baseball. a lot of the questions that I've been asked about the lockout is, people are worried, well, what's going to happen to my Bowman collection? But I was reading an article that you wrote. The minor league CBA is separate from the MLB. So how does that work?
So the major league players and the owners have their own contract. The minor leaguers, who are now unionized in the same umbrella as the major leaguers, they're all part of the Major League Baseball Players Association now. The minor leaguers are on their first contract. That's also a 5-year deal. It expires a year later. So we'll do it all again in some way. I don't expect there to be a lockout or a strike on the minor league side, at least not at this point. There's no reason to think that. But their contract is on a different timetable. So if there is a lockout on opening day of 2027 in Major League Baseball, the minor league CBA is still in force. Minor league players have to report and play. There is no change there, with the exception that 40-man roster players would be part of the major league work stoppage, part of the major league lockout. So that's, the upper level AAA guys who might have been on the cusp of who'd been called up once before, added to the 40, who might otherwise have been in AAA. That's where you'd see the most effect in terms of minor league baseball. And then the only other question that could exist if you had a really prolonged work stoppage is if owners wanted to try to pursue replacement players, would they find some minor leaguers who are willing to do it? It was a very controversial thing to do in 94, 95, and we're quite far away from that. But the heart of it is the 40-man roster is the dividing line.
So let's say we get towards the end of this season, say it's September-ish. There has not been any, they haven't made any advancements in this deal. Well, do you think you'll see MLB teams kind of like play games with their 40-man as far as guys they would normally call up, but maybe it's one of their top prospects and they don't want him to get locked out next season in the event of a lockout, so they keep them off the 40 intentionally in case they want them to play the minor league next season? Or would they have a way to like manipulate that and move guys up and down, or how would that work?
I guess it's theoretically possible in a situation where they were thinking ahead, but it's not a totally dissimilar question to something that comes up like during free agency. People were asking me, are teams strategizing this winter over the expected lockout? Are they structuring contracts to deal with it? And I think, sometimes in sports and life, there's 4-dimensional chess. I don't know that there's going to be a ton of that, because you end up playing a dangerous game there. If indeed if you're making a move that you would not have otherwise made, and then on the premise that there's going to be a lockout that lasts a long time, and then it doesn't last a long time, well, now have you kind of otherwise put yourself in a bad position? And so it would really kind of depend on the individual team's roster. If the union ever received some sort of evidence of kind of, we've seen it with service time manipulation, right? There's some risk in moves like that. It would probably never be provable, but I think if anybody's thinking that way, it's going to be a pretty small amount of that. You don't want to bank on we're going to miss a year. It's a very hard thing to predict, because everybody can say we're going to miss a year, and then you get in the middle of it and you go, oh man, this is bad. We got to find a way to play. And then while you've made all these decisions around missing a year, it doesn't feel like the most practical thing to do. But could there be a unique case or two? Sure.
Yeah. And if they were to, let's say, we get to February next year, as you said, last time it went down to the wire, it often goes down to the wire. Let's say we get to January, February, where the time, catchers and pitchers start reporting. Would they have a spring training with prospects and non-40-man roster guys if there was still a lockout, or would there just not be a spring training?
Minor league spring training would exist. If there's a major league lockout and major league camps haven't opened, minor leaguers would still, their CBA, again, their contract's in force. They got to get ready for their season. that would still continue.
So if we went down to the wire, we could just get a spring training next year. It could just be one giant spring breakout game. We would just get we just get a spring training of prospects playing against each other. That'd be listen, that'd be kind of fun for me.
Yeah, I'd want to. I'm trying to search through my ever so cluttered memory banks of March of 2022, right? Because, when the CBA was reached last time, it was already the point in time in which minor leaguers should have been preparing. I wish I could tell you I remember exactly what the situation was with minor league spring training, but absent something I'm forgetting, yeah, I mean the minor leaguers got to get ready for the season.
Yeah. And if we went in, let's say it's weeks, it's however long that they do lock out into the regular season. Whereas back in the 94, people were kind of turned away from baseball. Nowadays, you can watch minor league baseball games. Like, they have their own package. Do you think that the MLB locking out would drive fans away? Or do you think that baseball fans, that we would see an increase in viewership in minor league baseball because they just want to watch baseball?
I imagine you'd see some level of uptick. During the pandemic, everybody started watching. I think it was KBO, the Korean top league. I don't think it would be meaningful in the sense of, well, we're fine because everybody's watching minor league baseball now. Most Major League Baseball fans, like hardcore fans, yeah, you might get your fix somewhere else, but everybody's going to want the top level guys back, and so I could see something of an uptick, but I don't know that you're going to see people in droves all of a sudden kind of adopting the minor leagues as their thing.
Right. And you mentioned, something about, would they look at the minor league players as replacement players? On the other side, for players, is it crazy to think that if this lockout, obviously you don't expect it to last that long into the season, would there be a scenario where the players would look for somewhere else to play if we got months into the season, or probably not?
You're talking about Major League players?
Yeah.
So look, this is from last time, and a lot of these are kind of, these are ultimately legal questions, and the union can offer different guidance, new guidance, updated guidance at any point. This is as best I understand it. As much as I enjoy talking to labor lawyers, I am not myself one, so a little bit of hedging on the way I understand it. But last time, the advice that the union gave to players was, we would defend you if the league challenged you going overseas to play during the lockout. So it's kind of stopping short of saying, yes, absolutely, you can do it. This is the way I was reading, just looking back an old story I wrote. So you could see 40-man guys in a long stoppage attempt to go overseas. That also becomes it really is kind of a question centered on a long stoppage, though, right? I don't think you're going to see a guy in April decide, you know what, I'm out of here, I'm leaving. You could, but it's kind of a cross that bridge when you get there type of conversation.
So it basically seems like, the moral of the story is everybody talks a tough game. We're obviously a year away from this being an issue where we're going to miss playing time. But if you had to guess, as you said, you're not a betting man. If you had to guess, you would side with no missed games in 2027 is your initial leanings.
No missed games, or maybe a few missed games. It's an interesting question for the owners. If you're going to propose a cap, and historically the players have never wanted it, how long do you embark on that journey? Do you embark on that journey until the very end, until you've broken the union and they cave kind of no matter what? Do you pivot in March? It's hard to know how far they want to take it. Are all 30 going to stick together, or enough of them? You don't need all 30, but you need 3/4 to ratify a CBA. You need 23 of the 30 to be on board with it. And so kind of a small group of dissenters can make a lot of noise. It's the billions of dollars question. How far do the owners want to take it? Because if they are bent on a salary cap, there will be missed games. The idea that the union is going to now, after decades of saying we don't want a cap, fold on that before games are missed, I think it's pie in the sky. Once you get into it, okay, well then how long? Are the players willing to go a year? Are they willing to go more than a year? It's very kind of silly in a way, or not silly, but trite. It's kind of sappy. It's solidarity. The only thing that on either side, the only thing that matters if you're trying to force something and make a major change in labor relations is how well you stick together. How long are you willing to miss paychecks to go? And so I think the owners like making money, and they like making it in the near term. And there's a lot of pressure to keep making money. Could they surprise me and everybody to some degree and just say, screw this, we're not playing until we get a cap? They could. I'm just not convinced they're going to do it quite yet.
And as you mentioned with when we went down to the wire last time and, you were following the situation, who usually ends up in these situations? Obviously both sides make concessions, but is there one side that typically, are the owners more in the position where they're going to get more things their way than the players will? Or how does that balance usually shake out at the end?
It depends a bit on each CBA. I think there's an underlying feeling here that last time the players were quite angry. They'd been angry for about 10 years. And the CBA swung toward the players. My guess is kind of no matter what happens here, I expect there will be some gains for the owners. They'll even if they don't get a cap. And remember, this is a kind of a setup that Rob Manfred has here. He can back off a cap at some point and say, "Look, I'm backing off a cap." Well, but here are the things you still got to give me, and then you go down the road of, well, are the players willing to give them that? But my guess is the players are giving something in this one, and the players will certainly have some gains of their own in some areas. I think we'll probably end up with an international draft. They were getting close last time. I think the league is likely to come away with something it wants in an economic sense. Whether that's ultimately a cap, I'm not sure.
I actually don't hate the idea of an international draft. That would be pretty fun. Well, I'm just glad that the broad picture is, I had read your article, but I was wondering, I know a lot of people were, how likely we were, because it seems to be when, obviously, when you get on sites like Twitter, you just hear nothing but bad news. But it seems like there are a lot of people who genuinely thought we wouldn't have baseball in 2027. And I know a lot of people who subscribe to me are all worried about their card collection. So if there's for sure going to be minor leagues no matter what, and you feel pretty good about the fact that there won't be a long work stoppage in the MLB, I feel like those are both good news.
On the second, look, the minor leagues have to play. There is a collective bargaining agreement in place, and when that is in place, there's no kind of just going, well, we're not going to play too. No, you are legally required to get out there. On the second piece, we're not going to know until we get there. My overarching point is I think there's a lot of reasons to believe that they'll find a way to play. And what I would educate people on to some degree is just, it's not easy, but it's much easier to talk tough now. And the term I've started to use, I've yet to use it in a story, but I'm going to do it pretty soon. It's all leverage theater to some degree. It's all, we'll wait as long as it takes. Okay. But then check in March. If you want, put it on the calendar a year from now. Let's see where we're at. Because this will be right around the time, maybe a little bit afterwards, that if they're going to play a full regular season, we will have the answer by March 20th of next year.
Thanks again to Evan for taking time out of his day to join us and talk about the CBA and the impending MLB lockout. I think that my main takeaway from this is that if you're in cards, there's no better spot to be for baseball in next season than prospecting. As he said, we might not see a huge increase in viewership in minor league baseball, but when it comes to selling new products and keeping people involved in the hobby, it is going to be hard to keep those things running while there is no product on the field. Of course, we are all fingers crossed that the MLB will not miss any significant time, but if they do, it's good to know that those of us who are collecting minor league baseball players only should be safe, as there will be a season for us no matter what. Thanks for listening to the Prospect Analytics Podcast, and we will see you next time.